Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's so good to be with all of you today. I'm grateful for you choosing to spend this time with us on this topic. My name is Fatma. I am the head of community at ThinkHuman, and I'm dialing in from Tunisia. So please let us know in the chat your name, where you're dialing in from, and if you want, how you're checking in today. I am checking in feeling excited and energized to be part of this conversation today. Would love to see how you're all feeling. Let's see. Alrighty, I'm still not receiving anything in the chat, but I'm seeing the number of attendees growing. Hello, everyone, and welcome. So great to be with all of you. My name is Fatma. Oh, it says that the chat might be disabled. We will look into that right now, but I will continue introducing this webinar. And we would love to hear from you whenever we resolve that little technical issue. So thank you again for being here. Welcome to those who are sharing the space with us. And please take from this conversation whatever you need to serve you and your growth. And please don't let the growth stop here today. We encourage you to connect with a teammate, a friend, or even a therapist or a coach to talk through whatever came up and how you want to feel empowered to take that back to your community and also take care of yourself. So we're going to get warmed up in the chat. I want to see if that got resolved. Yes, we're seeing some people from Arizona, Oklahoma, Atlanta, Wisconsin. I'm dialing in from Tunisia, everyone. I know we have an international crowd. We have, oh, Monica from New York. Welcome, everyone, again. So let's get warmed up in the chat and let's start thinking about this conversation, because actually some people from the community inspired it in the conversation we were having with them. So let us know in the chat, what does success look like and feel like for you, or for your team, or for your organization, whatever feels present for you today. We are conscious that we have different cultures and generations represented in our community, so all perspectives are welcome. Let's see what we have. Not having to prove myself, goal accomplishments and awards, helping others succeed and get to where they need to be. Moving from DC, I love that. For me, contentment, joy, love, and peace. I love that definition of success. Thank you. Purpose that drives positive movement. I love how purposeful and intentional this community is. Continue sharing and connecting with the intention you have for this conversation so you can actually get a nugget of growth at the end. This is a great input, and your presence and contribution always makes the conversation richer. You might spark a thought for someone in the room, or we might all be learning something from what you say in the chat. So please continue interacting the way you are doing right now in the chat throughout the conversation. We will do our best to include it as well. This webinar wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for our fantastic partners and the commitment and heartfelt work on our team and leadership team at ThinkHuman to provide a safe and brave space for real conversations in the world like this one. So I'm thrilled to introduce ThinkHuman and our partners for today's webinar. ThinkHuman is a leadership development organization that supports HR and L&D leaders with implementing community-centered and experiential-based leadership programs for leaders at all levels that are built to support a culture of belonging. The leadership training programs we offer, in particular our flagship programs, Mini Lab and Leader Lab, are designed to create mindset shifts and behavioral change over time that sticks and with a heart-centered approach. Towards the end of the webinar, a poll will pop up so you can let us know if you're interested in hearing from ThinkHuman or from our partners. In the meantime, here's a link to schedule some time to connect with my teammate Asia, who is present on the webinar as well today, to hear more about us and how you can be working with us potentially. And then we have Blueboard. Blueboard is an experiential rewards platform for the world's most loved employers. They make it easy for companies to give experiential employee rewards, incentives, and recognition from one-of-a-kind to once-in-a-lifetime experiences. Think skydiving, dining at a Michelin restaurant, hot air ballooning, or chasing the Northern Lights. They partner with hundreds of best places to work, like Glassdoor, Shake Shack, GoPro, Segment, and more, to help them celebrate their people in a more meaningful and authentic way. To learn more about this amazing platform and how to bring this to the people, please visit blueboard.com. Last but not least, PowerToFly is a women-led company focused on empowering and underrepresented talent across all races, ages, ethnicities, sexual orientations, abilities, and gender identities. They achieve this by connecting and upskilling diverse talent with companies that are committed to creating a more inclusive and equitable workplaces. To explore ways to work with this awesome trailblazing company, please visit powertofly.com. Thanks again to our partners and to our amazing panel, who you will meet shortly, for helping us bring this event to life. Before we dive into the webinar, we would like to share an artistic moment, as that's the ritual of ThinkHuman, as we clear our minds and settle in for the conversation. We hope that this helps you feel grounded and open for today's discussion. Blessing us with his gift today, we have Christopher C.A. Williams. Christopher is the Tennessee spoken word poet and publisher of 2 books. CA is also the founder and coordinator of Under One Roof, a quarterly event started in June 2018 that brings together poets, comedians, and musicians. Along with writing poetry and coordinating events, he created 3 YouTube videos from his book, Different Sides, that provides a visual of his poetry. He can be followed at C.A. Williams Poet on Instagram and Facebook. Without further ado, I will pass it to you, CA, and thank you for being here.
Hello to everyone. Thank you all for having me. With the topic being redefining success, I will be sharing 2 poems from my book, Different Sides. This first piece is titled, No Wings. 2 eyes, 1 nose. 2 legs, 1 soul. But just like you, I have no wings. I am not a bird, bald eagle. I'm not protector of all, guardian angel, but still I can soar, glide, fly through the sky, reaching altitudes that my legs cannot climb. Yes, I have no wings. But what does that truly even mean? The answer is absolutely nothing. My chains have been broken. I'm no longer bound. I refuse to keep my feet planted on the ground. For it was not until I flew when I found success and heard greatness, and it was such a marvelous sound. I believed that I could fly, so I flew. So now I ask you, what will you do, even though you have no wings? This second piece is titled, Better Uprising. If you desire better, better job, better clothes, better car, better home, just know that if you want better, first you have to be better. Be a better daughter, better son, better wife, better husband, just overall be a better human. And to all the men, don't forget to respect ladies of all sizes and races and from different generations. But see, if you want to be better, first you have to do better. When it comes to right and wrong, you can no longer straddle the fence. When you know something's wrong, just give it some distance. Yes, all these wrong actions you need to let go, just like someone who does not build you up, you should no longer follow. But you should also know that if you want to do better, first you have to think better. It's time to be more optimistic and let your faith, belief, and dreams grow stronger. Because without it, better is something that you will never get. See, what I'm trying to say is, if you want better, first and foremost, before anything else, you have to think better. And if you decide to start having better thoughts, I can promise you, better will fall out the sky like raindrops. And if you decide to start thinking better, just know the result will be a better tomorrow. Yes, I see better on the uprising. Thank you all again for having me. I will be putting a link for my book in the comments for anyone who's interested. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you so much for that. I'm waiting for my better to fall from the sky like raindrops. So I appreciate your gifts and sharing it with us. Welcome, community. I am Hakimia, moderator of the year, DEI board advisor, and CEO of Divinely Powered. And I'm happy to be here with you today. And today we are going to be better and do better while redefining success in the new world of work. Many of us have bought into the social belief that success equates to an accumulation of wealth and status. This belief keeps us in this race we're running, this competition that may come at an expense of others, your talent, or maybe even yourself. You know, my mother used to say, what profits a man to gain the whole world, but loses himself in the process? I'm curious, have you been lost in this process of chasing success? Is your definition of success defined by you? Does your definition of success have expectations that you created or something that you just bought into? Do you only believe that if I reach this certain compensation, then that's all that matters? Are there areas in your life that you have deprioritized, like having a purpose in life, making a greater impact, loving your family, friends, your partner, healthy team culture while on this road to success? Success needs a radical makeover, and today we're gonna get it. A redefinition beyond how much money you make in your career, your net worth, business results or accomplishments. The leaders of today and the future are no longer disillusioned or compartmentalizing their success. Success matters in every aspect of our lives, from well-being to community, to servant leadership, to business performance, and on. Where previous generations may have valued success from the outside in, guess what? These new age of leaders are envisioning success from the inside out. Our thought leaders today will share their insights on what success looks like to substantially enrich your workplace today. And so it's time for us to evolve, y'all. Let's get ready. Please send your positive energy to our speakers and welcome Asia, Executive Leadership Coach, ThinkHuman, Kevin, COO and co-founder of Blueboard, Lauren, Head of Growth at ThinkHuman, and Noel, Global DEIB Strategist and Trainer from PowerToFly. And so I start with being better and doing better and redefining success. I want to know, starting with Noel and the rest of the panelists, what has been your past relationship with success? And now what does it look like moving forward?
The past definition for success for me was always working way too much and really pushing myself into burnout all the time. It was about working twice as hard by getting half as far, and that's just what was expected to me generationally passed down. The way that this has changed for me more recently is understanding that true success means ease, and true success means that I'm able to put in elements of my life that feel balanced. And I'm not truly successful until I can have a balance here of softness and joy and accomplishments. It has to all make sense. So it's less about getting to a finish line or a certain title, and it's about finding like real peace and happiness where I am.
Amen. Noel, you came in hot. I love that. Yes.
Let's go.
Get it as a journey. Yes, I love it.
Hakimia, the energy, anyways, it's fire. You said something that reminded me of high school, and I haven't thought about it in a long time. And my high school quote was by Bob Marley. It's like, don't gain the world and lose your soul. Wisdom is better than silver and gold. And I think it was a reminder to me at a young age that I felt pulled sometimes by society's definition the silver and gold. But I always tried to like battle that and remind myself that that's not as important as kind of the inside out. And so that was a battle that I had gone through with success. And now I think how I've kind of redefined it and almost untethered from the word success is understanding what makes me happy, what I value, and making sure I'm spending my time and energy there.
Yes.
And so yeah, thanks for that reminder.
Oh, anytime. And thank you for shouting out, Bob Marley.
Yeah, I have a Bob Marley quote, the day you stop racing is the day you win the race. That's his quote that resonates with me. And so I love the music, sort of tie in there. And yeah, I think for me, if I'm being very honest about my own journey with success, kind of similar to Noelle, just the messages and the programming of working twice as hard, being a woman of color, to get even half as far as some of my colleagues. And for me as well, just sharing with the group, me being neurodiverse/neurodivergent and what that looks like with networking, building relationships. For me, diving into my work and my performance is how I show that I care. And so I did tie that to being successful, being based on performance, and also that title piece, because that level of success and recognition often meant a certain level of being able to provide for my family or set an example for others from my community who don't think that they have the same opportunities. But it took experiencing that burnout a little while back, several years ago, and also that failure of the burnout to lead to me redefining my definition of success, or redefining success rather, to really being about the inside out, like what's come up previously, and how that genuine joy for what it is that you're doing and what your gifts are, how does that manifest outwardly in what you're providing to the world and how you're making an impact? Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Ada, for sharing.
And I've resonated so much with like everybody's definitions here, especially like I think there's like a common theme about like being in the present and like ensuring that you're like enjoying the life that you're living and not just like obsessed with like achieving those like more material or kind of like fleeting goals where like you achieve them, you get the job that you've always wanted, right? And then what? And for me, that's been a big part of my journey. Is I think, earlier in my life, like most of us, I was driven by like financial and a kind of career aspirations and places I wanted to get to. A lot of that was like security and like scarcity mindset in a way. And for me, I've had this really interesting evolution where today I look at success less about like achieving the big goals and milestones that I want. I still like have big goals that are aligned to my own personal values that I've deeply defined and things that I'm working towards. But I've mentioned in one of the pre-calls with the panelists, I had a big, like 10 years ago, I had a big shift in my head as to what success is when I read an article on regrets and people's regrets on their deathbed. And there were 5 regrets. There's I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself and not the life others expected of me, that I didn't work so hard. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings, that I had stayed in touch with my friends, and I had let myself be happier. So for me right now, success is defined as, am I living by that? Am I going to like end up and like go across the line feeling like I didn't have regrets and then I lived this to the fullest? Like that to me is success. And all the other goals are nice like accoutrements and like icing on the top if I'm living a full life like true to my values and like driving towards my own goals.
Yes, thank you so much, panelists, for coming in very hot. And I just want to share from our community. Stacy said success should be personally defined always. I know it isn't, but it shouldn't be something that is defined by anyone but ourselves. What makes that so hard, right? We know, now we know, but what made that so hard to, for us to just fall into that trap of how society defines success?
I mean, I think that it is shame and also just like expectations that were put on us. And with shame attached to success, it's like the guilt that we feel that from other people that they give to us, saying like, oh, that's just not where you are supposed to be. And then we internalize that. And we're like, oh, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, then that means that I'm less somehow. So I feel like shame really does show up for us during those moments when we've let others define what success means to us.
That shame, when you were speaking, I heard also just doubt, because I see someone else succeeding in their way. So I think that way may also work for me as well. Right. And I doubt my own abilities and gifts.
Yeah, we get those limited beliefs, like they will get us in a chokehold if we let them. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, the imposter syndrome is real. Yeah.
It's hard to let go of what like you think you're supposed to be and what like society told you to be and just be. It's such an uncoupling from like a well-worn path and stepping out of it. It's hard.
It is.
Yeah. And the expectations too, on top of what it is that we want and genuinely feel and want to pursue. There might be some expectations, it's sort of out of our control, whether it's responsibilities or certain other factors where even aside from what might possibly be limiting beliefs, which are very real and can also be major roadblocks, there is also part of that could potentially be a reality for folks where it's like, oh, well, I have had to go in this direction because this is how I provide for my family. And so I think, to the point of being able to define your own definition, or I keep saying define your own definition, but redefine success for yourself. It really does kind of, come down to what balance means for you as an individual, and then thinking about that bigger picture as a team or as an organization and all the different energies that are involved. Like we're all bringing something different to the table, and our life experience does have an impact on how we see success, and also the fact that it can evolve for us over time. I think that's a really cool part of defining it for ourselves too. What success looks like now could and probably will change in the next few years for us as panelists, for everyone in this room, in the chat, in the conversation with us today. And I think that's the exciting part, but also the challenge. Like how do we create a space where all of it is okay? Culturally, generationally, easier said than done, but from that inclusion kind of perspective, I think that's the key, how to, really implement this once we have redefined it.
I think, yeah, on this journey, it's like, I think it's so important to be kind to yourself, because I think success from the societal perspective is really imposed on us before we even know who we really are.
Ooh,
right?
Hold on, Kevin, that's a mess. Hold on, I gotta stop you and have you repeat that, because that's a message right there. So please repeat.
Yeah. Okay. I'm always not great at this because I'm just like talking off the top. I think it's really important to be kind to yourself in redefining success, because society almost imposes and it presents the image of success before we even know who we really are, right? At such a young age, you have to study and get good grades and move to the top of the class. You ought to get picked first in dodgeball and, all these other, and you're just a kid. Right. But these things are they don't feel so overt, but they're almost more powerful than being overt, right? They're these constant reminders of being at the top of competition that, when you do kind of get your footing of who you are and how your values are developing, you've had this idea of success for, probably a decade, 2 decades, some people, and so I think it's really important to be kind, because that unwinding is difficult.
Yes, you are so right. Everyone's shaking their head and the chat is going off right now, but I want you to stay right there for me, Kevin, and think about this during the time where we may not know who we are and we're on this chase to success. Has there ever been a time where you did something where you sacrificed a certain part of who you were just to reach, that checkbox or to succeed in what you were doing now, because now you're a leader, you're a co-founder.
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. I think, and maybe I'll kind of talk from more of like a principle basis. I think a lot of times you may not know exactly what you want to do. You may not know exactly a certain value of yours until you realize what isn't a value, what don't you want to do. And that's kind of by that experimentation and growth. And so, I think for me, in this, in starting Blueboard in this company, right, starting your own company is a consuming endeavor, and, striking that balance of making sure that I'm taking care of myself, not just the business. And the business, I think this is what I struggled with, the most in the beginning, is the business is important to me, but it's not like me. I'm so much more than it. And I'm a completely different person besides it. And that took a long time, because every time the business was doing great, I was feeling great. Every time the business was doing bad, I was feeling horrible. And I'm like, wait a minute, got to stop this. Yeah. Anyways, that's what comes to mind.
That is Kevin, that is something I struggled with so long, especially early in my sales career, of like your own personal like worth and value being tied to that success, especially like as a founder or someone who's like on the revenue side of a business. There's a number, right? And when that number's like looks good, you feel valuable. And when that number doesn't look good, if you haven't separated that like the business from like your own personal like worth, it can feel like a really bad roller coaster and not play well over time. Yep.
I think one of the early books on leadership I read that was kind of really influential on me was this book by the San Francisco 49ers former head coach, Bill Walsh. And it's titled "The Score Takes Care of Itself." And so don't perseverate, don't obsess over the outcome, but just, hey, focus on the practice, showing up, being present. And if you do that and you build that habit, like, things will fall in order. But like, anyways, so that's what came to mind.
I think for me, I needed to give up being comfortable being on a machine, because I had, gotten onto that roller coaster. I sat down, I put down the lap belt, and I was like, okay, so this is what I guess I'm going to do. But I needed to stop and I needed to get off. And so I needed to give up being comfortable where I was and be able to get into a space that felt more organic to who I was, even though it wasn't on that machine that I had signed up for. And it was really uncomfortable and scary at first, but I'm a big believer in that there is no growth in comfort. And so I had to get very, very uncomfortable to find the path of success that felt really organic to who I am and what felt right for me.
Yeah, Noelle, now I have to pause you and have you repeat that last part, because that was the message. No growth in comfort. Go ahead.
Absolutely. There's absolutely no growth in comfort. We really have to be able to push ourselves outside of our boundaries to be able to find what feels good and authentic to who we are. And it's okay being comfortable for a little while, but if you're looking to grow and you're not seeing that you're on the path that feels good for you, it's like putting on like a really comfortable jacket, and that's great, or a really nice blanket, and we love it. But if I want to get out there in the world, I have to take off the blanket and do something that's outside of my comfort zone and be okay with that.
I'm so like trying to live my life around that, Noelle. Like I was reading an article too about how that living like that, like constantly like allowing yourself new experiences and stepping outside and allowing yourself to like grow and test and try, like you as a human end up feeling like you have a longer life, like because you were having new experiences that ingrain on your brain instead of the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, that kind of just gets washed over. It was a really interesting perspective. And I was like, wow, like that, I felt that, but I'd never like seen it like written down like that. I'm so aligned.
Yeah, that definitely resonates. For me, it took experiencing burnout and failure and that discomfort. I think that for me was like the launch pad of pursuing being a coach and kind of taking the not so traditional route for what my work is and kind of the freelance route and things like that. And I've received pushback from folks who mean well, but they're not on my journey as far as not quite understanding how I'm applying my energy, although I'm doing work that I really love. And so yeah. And I totally agree about that balance of, like what Kevin said, there's kindness. And then Noelle mentioned, like, comfort is good at certain points and at certain times. I think especially if you're discovering and redefining success, and there's a healing part of that, because it's not always easy doing that inner work and kind of going on that journey. But then once you've done that, being open to that discomfort and trying new things and resting, which might also be uncomfortable for people who really do see that constant kind of hamster wheel as what success is for them, which for some folks, it's understandable. And so how do we give permission for that not to have to be the case if folks don't necessarily want to choose that? Is what their path towards success is, if they even want to use success as the term for what it is they're pursuing. So there's that too. Permission to not even use the word success, I think, is part of success, in that we're being more open and inclusive for what success looks like and how people can live their truth of what that is.
Yes. Well said, Asia. And along the lines, of staying in that space of being uncomfortable, has there ever been a time, and this is for everyone, but Asia, I want to leave with you, where you had to challenge those cultural norms, the generational norms that may have existed, and say, hey, you know what, that just don't work for me. I am owning this definition of success, or not even using that word.
Yeah. For me, and this is something that a lot of people know about my journey. I started out working in education, in higher education specifically, which I love education in general. Very, very close place in my heart, and it's a big part of the coaching work that I do. There's an educational piece to that. I have had experiences of working in places, not all of my experience, but some, where as far as the culture of the institution and also expectations of leaders at the institution didn't quite align with who I was, as far as being able to not only show up authentically, but I think even for the time and effort being put into initiatives to build the community, the results on the community were not the priority. It was more of hitting certain points for the institution itself, which is understandable from a business perspective, but there wasn't that balance. And I think being in an education setting where I loved the work that I was doing, that was a point for me where working so hard, experiencing burnout, but then also seeing the end result of it's just not landing. That's where I saw the disconnect, where I was like, oh, wow, like maybe doing this for this title where it's coming from a genuine place where I think I'm doing the right thing. And if I'm doing this, that means, other folks might feel inspired to do it too. It ended up being a decision that led me not only to a place where I was not aligned with the institution itself, but experiencing that burnout and quite literally making myself sick doing work that I loved. Like, that was a disconnect I couldn't understand at that point. And I had to do a lot of healing. But that failure experience led me into coaching, and also recognizing that there's a great opportunity to have an impact on leadership and how leaders take care of their people and their community and their organization. And so, I share that experience to say, as far as success evolving over time, I love education. I might go back to higher ed in the future, or, figuring out ways to partner. I do still work, with the college community, along with leaders and executives that I coach. So that's how I've redefined success, is stepping away from that environment that wasn't a fit for me. I pursued just being a coach, and now I work with different organizations I think truly kind of living out that mission. And part of it is so that folks don't necessarily have to experience that trauma if it can be prevented. So that experience of that failure of what I used to think was success, it literally created the path that I'm on right now. That's continuing to evolve. And so it really is about that inner work and then how it manifests outwardly with what it is that you're giving to the world and trying to help and heal rather than harm and continue to perpetuate, kind of the toxic cycles, if you will.
There's a blessing in every lesson. You're on this path for a reason, Asia.
Yeah. And we can learn and grow from every experience. And that is part of the success journey as well. There are going to be, moments that are difficult, whether it's for ourselves or the people that we're working with along the journey as we're trying to share with them, what success means to us. I think it's an adjustment for everybody, especially as we're learning from each other generationally, culturally, which is a challenge, but it's also exciting. I think that's the great part of being able to have a conversation like this.
I think, I think early on when you're like kind of coming in, like defining success, I feel like often like you bat against the cultural definitions and generational definitions. I think what's interesting for my journey is I've kind of gone back to a couple like cultural concepts. One is called, and I think the theme for both of them is like being part of something bigger than yourself. Like, what does that mean to me?
Yes.
And one is called this. It's Japanese. It's this idea of shokunin, which kind of loosely translates to like artisan, but it's like almost this spirit of. In Japanese culture, you can, go to the local sushi shop and, the chef there has been making sushi for 30 to 40 years, every single day, day in, day out, the same menu. And there's like almost this honor and like privilege in that, this chef like dedicates their life to making sushi that other people enjoy. And that's one small part of like their customers' day and in their one small part of the community, but like there's a lot of honor and privilege in that. And so I kind of go back to that of like, what is, big or small, the thing that I'm like dedicating myself to that has like this kind of impact and like almost like leaves the world in a better spot. And so that's something I've gone back to, and I think it's been like an interesting, point of reflection for me of like, how am I part of something bigger than myself? And, anyways, I think that's a portion of success that I like to think about.
Shokunin. Did I say it?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. It's all about the community and not, solely myself desires or selfish desires. So I love that, Kevin. Lauren, Noelle?
So one of the things that was coming up for me with listening to you both is really identifying the things in yourself that feel really good. So I'm a big fan of Gay Hendricks and The Big Leap, who's a psychologist, talks about these like different zones that you work in. So you have the zone of incompetence, that's the stuff that you really have no business doing, the zone of competence, which is stuff that everybody can do. And then you have your zone of excellence and your zone of genius. And your zone of excellence is what everybody knows that you can do well. And they come to you for answers for it, and you can answer the questions and it's fine, but there's your zone of genius. And your zone of genius is where you really love to be. And the more you can move your way into your zone of genius, the more happiness that you have, the more balance that you have, and the more likely you are to find your version of what success is. And sometimes that is getting again outside of that comfort zone a little bit, but once you're able to really tap into like, that is my genius. And what I was doing over here, I was excellent at it, and excellent was great, but genius is so much better.
Ooh, I love that. A zone of genius, that like special place. Ooh, I so resonate with that. I think you know, I've kind of gone on a recent journey on this for myself that like resonates so much with that. You know, I've been a salesperson and a startup executive and growth leader for a long time. And I, you know, finally achieved a role that I wanted forever. And I thought that was like the thing. And like, once I got that, I'd be happy. And then when I got it and I stepped into it, I kind of started to realize like there's a piece of that that's in that like zone of genius that I just love, and it brings me so much and it adds so much value. But then I think as I've like grown over the years, I've realized that it's not the entirety of the job and role doesn't fit into that. And so I've gone through a bit of a journey of like readjusting my like priorities, readjusting my role, like pulling back from certain responsibilities and things and making sacrifices, you know, for that on like compensation, on like how much I work, things like that, so that I can pursue other areas of my life where there is like those areas of genius. And for me, that was creatively. I've like found a way to split my life in some genius areas in business, and also like explore and flourish in some creative opportunities as well. And I've been doing that for the past year. And honestly, it's been magical for me. And if like you have the opportunity to like do that work and unpack like what about, you know, what I'm doing today like falls into that category, what doesn't, and what would I want to like replace with my like time, there's ways to navigate that. And I've found a lot of joy over the past year of like separating that and thinking through it and really stepping into it. So like, oh, I love that you said that.
Yeah, I think that's the really important part, is that evolution and identifying what it is where you really can shine. Like for me, if I think about my experience working in higher ed and that community building, I'm thrilled that how my role has evolved at ThinkHuman is being able to work on events and being able to tap in to those sorts of things. But as far as that journey of even finding a company and a space where I'm able to explore that and have that hybrid and that flexibility and even that understanding of how my neurodivergent brain works and being able to work on different tasks, that's not something that's necessarily available everywhere. And I think that's really important, especially if there's folks on this call where you're like, well, how do I even like, how do I even start, you know, to explore, especially if I'm not working in an environment that supports that. And so, yeah, I'm just echoing what's been said, where like that zone of genius and actually actively exploring what that is, whether you have support or not, which might be easier said than done, but that is a really important part of that, you know, process. That's something that's been pretty substantial for me. And then also the permission, kind of like what Lauren said, of that growing over time as you continue on your journey and learning about who you are and what you love, trying new things, stepping out of your comfort zone. Yeah.
Also, I think encouraging that like work as a business is a very smart move. Like letting people like find the ways like they shine, what, you know, whether it's, you know, like a neurodivergent like way of like working that you need to adjust, whether it's like changing the aspects of the role, or like really like getting more creative with how do we find people's superpowers, the things that just light them up, that genius zone, and allow them to just run in that direction. And I think the stuff we can see from people like in that, especially when they feel like they belong, like they're fulfilled, like they're growing in what they're doing, like it creates magic.
Absolutely. And, you know, when we're talking about folks who are neurodivergent, I'm neurodivergent as well. I have dyscalculia and an ADHD, but with dyscalculia specifically, as I've learned more about it, it's not just seeing all the challenges, but also seeing like what are like the superpowers that are attached to some of your challenges, whether it's neurodivergence traits or not. So I know that if I'm not super great at being on time and stuff, if somebody asks me to put together a spreadsheet, it's going to take me longer than other people. But what I do know is that people who have dyscalculia are really great at the big picture, and they're really good at being creative, and they're really good at finding solutions. And those things are all really great that come along with having a disability. So it doesn't always have to be something that's negative and heavy. I can still find the path that works best for me and see the things that are really positive about things that have previously held me back.
Yeah. And when you're in an environment that supports that flourishing, it's a game changer.
Right.
It really is, not just for the individual, but for the organization at large, because there's just so many possibilities where if we're open to thinking outside of the comfort zone, you really can put people into roles where they are happy and fulfilled, and it's helping your business grow, you know? And so it's all connected. If your people are feeling successful in how they're able to show up to work as a whole person, then they will show up as a whole person with their energy and their commitment to the work that they're doing at your organization or on your team.
I love this. I want to go and read this book. And I think it's important as leaders that, you know, are kind of leading our teams is to be able to tap into that, because I think what everyone said is like, when you can match like that zone of Jesus, like what people love to do, what they're great at, with like kind of fitting into a role in the team and understanding how it adds to the overall goal. Like that's what makes a great team. Anyway.
Yeah. And what you're explaining, you know, is ideal. But the reality is, I'm looking at some of our comments. It's like, it's hard to find a company culture like that. So
yeah, sometimes you got to build it. So, and that's part of it too, is encouraging organizations to, you know, kind of plant that seed in redefining and rebuilding, because you might not be at a workplace where that's there yet. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is also getting to a comfort level with calling folks in gently.
Yes.
It can happen at work where maybe I'm not able to catch up on something that's going on in a meeting, and I need to be the first person to say, I need you to slow down. I'm not really understanding this. Can you send this over ahead of time as opposed to us doing this live in the meeting, because I need some more time to register, or whatever it is. I don't love the way that I'm being pushed into this when I really want to be doing this. Could we get me into more of these opportunities? It's like being like your own self-advocate is one of the biggest skills that we can learn that can change our entire lives. And we don't get as stuck when we can just start making these small asks, and eventually they'll be turned into larger ones. But that self-advocacy piece is huge.
It is huge. And what I hear you say is, I can't wait for anyone to invest in me being better. I have to do it now and own this path of success, because no one gives a damn about me as much as I care about myself.
Right. 100%.
We are the main characters in our own story.
Come on, Lauren.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
No one else is.
Yeah. And then tying it just to the community piece, because I know what's come up is like the individual, and then even the bigger picture of that. I think for me, the self-advocacy piece is essential. And then using that to help be part of the change, so that there is, even if it's just a little bit, kind of on that, you know, systemic level, if you will. Because I think if we are able to create organizations and team environments where there is that level of nurturing and support paired with the self-advocacy, I think that that's truly where the big picture transformation comes from. And I think especially for teams and businesses too. And so I think the different perspectives here, kind of as I've mentioned, like being able to balance all of that. So just from an inclusion standpoint, just different types of folks and how they show up, there's an opportunity for all beings to thrive, not just some, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Right. And not having the expectation that all people are going to show up in the same way.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so different from person to person. When I think that like this is my level of where I'm able to execute things, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's right for everybody else. And it's like really tapping into what that means to other people before I'm saying they're falling behind. Are they, or did I not set up good expectations? Are they positioned in a spot where they can do what they need to do and do really well, or are they, you know, floundering? I think that sometimes managers get onto that a little bit too late.
Yeah.
I feel like the self-advocacy is like when you're kind of going through it, like for yourself, it's hard. But like when you actually deliver it like to your leader and manager, they really appreciate it generally, right? Because they're like, oh, I know better how to work with you. I know better how to like put you up and kind of fit you into the team. And so like it makes leaders' jobs easier when you self-advocate. And it's I think it's so mutually beneficial. And I think there's sometimes like that self-consciousness that people need to get past, but it's so helpful. Yeah.
It's that self-consciousness and the accountability. Sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves, because once we put it out there, guess what? The universe, the world, the people around you are going to keep you accountable to it in some type of way. And so I like to say it's accountability or your ass. Like, we have to keep each other accountable on this journey of redefining success. And I can't believe we only have 9 minutes left. Time has flown by. I've enjoyed this conversation so much. We are going to take a connection break. You are going to get a poll that pops up shortly. Please let us know, who would you like to connect with on this journey of redefining success? You have these leaders here sharing some really great insight. Please continue the conversation with either or all ThinkHuman, Blueboard, or PowerToFly. Be sure to connect with these leaders on LinkedIn. The conversation is not over. We still have a little bit more to discuss, but we want to give you some time to continue to build community and connection. So please select which organization you would like to continue the conversation with. And so with that, let's think about some practical steps and ways to continue to redefine and create that inclusive environment as it relates to defining success. What are some strategies or key practices that you would recommend to these leaders here on the line?
Reflection. Take some time for yourself. If you don't have a good definition of what success is, if you don't have a good definition of your values, your goals, or haven't revisited them in a long time, take some time out. Like, block off distractions, write, do some self-work, see what's there. Like, you might be surprised.
Absolutely. And I think with a lot of the work that I do, what I tell leaders to take some next steps with thinking about this is making sure that you're asking questions. You may think that you know exactly what somebody needs to do, and you may think that you have somebody on a path for success, and then realize things a little bit too late. But it's like all about like tapping in, following up, and asking questions that really matter. And ask like, how do you like to communicate? How do you prefer to get your feedback? What does success look like to you? But not making that a one-time thing, making that being like a consistent conversation, so that we can make sure that nobody falls in between the cracks.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, go for it, Kevin. Yeah.
I think that a reflection is huge. And as we were preparing for this, I actually have my own reflection exercise planned out. But I think one thing that like comes to mind is, if you feel that like success is like the goalpost keeps moving, right? And you reach a point of goal, and then you have this other goal, and you don't feel successful until you hit that goal. I think that's like an interesting point to like slow down and unpack that and why. And almost like, I think maybe in my own journey of like untethered yourself to success, of like, okay, well, like, is that actually what success means? And I would really and then go back to Lauren's point of really reflecting and doing that self-work, because I think that can be counter. to really finding it.
Yeah, I echoing what the other panelists have said, and I think, yeah, doing that exploration, and then also kind of just learning from other perspectives of what success looks like for other people in terms of creating that community environment where all beings can thrive kind of as their authentic selves and pursuing what success means to them. And if there's any kind of debate, as far as definitions goes, that's a great opportunity for enlightening, conversation. And so I think as far as takeaways, it really relates to the leaning into the discomfort, and then the balance of that, of the kindness and compassion and the nurturing and a little bit of the comfort as you're going through this process of redefining what success looks like for yourself or your team or the organization at large.
Yeah. And organizationally, what are your thoughts there on how they define success?
Yeah, I'm open to passing, but I have thoughts. Fulfillment, people being satisfied, and I think it's important to source from your people how they're actually feeling working at your organization, and also how they feel about their growth trajectory and where they see themselves as your organization continues to evolve. I think it is really important for individual contributors, leaders, what have you, just like where do you see yourself in terms of your passion and your purpose as it relates to the bigger picture of what this organization is trying to achieve. And it's kind of similar to a mission statement or a vision statement that a business might have. It's important to revisit that and redefine that. And that is kind of an outward representation of what success means for an organization. And so I think that's a great starting point to use, not only for brainstorming and evolving, but also making sure that it resonates for people on your team and at your organization, because if it doesn't, then there's the opportunity for, further developmental conversation before the future happens. And we know with Gen Z, the requirements, what they're looking for. I mean, it is time to evolve, and for good reason. I mean, this is how it works. We learn, we evolve, we grow. And so I think it's all just part of the process. So yeah, from an organizational standpoint, I think mission or vision statement, if it's helpful to have something to use that's tactical, that could be a good kind of guidepost for some of the conversations that you have with people on your team.
And I think along with fiscal success, which is obviously something that businesses have to take a look at, what does belonging look like for your organization?
Yes.
And not just for the people on your team that need to feel like they belong, which definitely needs to be like an integral part of the work that you're doing, but also externally with the marketing that you're putting out. Are people able to see themselves? Are you using language that's like really gendered and makes other people feel excluded? Is there equal representation of what we're seeing when it comes to people of color and disability and lots of other things? Can people see themselves in what you're putting out there? And if not, it's important that you see like who belongs here with my products, with the services that I provide. Am I really putting that out there in a way that is going to, make people want to buy? And in the end, that's going to help you and your business grow. But if that belonging piece is missing, you're missing a lot.
Any last thoughts before we close with 2 minutes left? Thank you so much, community, for your time. Thank you so much, thought leaders, for sharing your insight and wisdom. And as we close, just remember this. People may spend their whole lives climbing the ladder of success, only to find, once they reach the top, that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. Lean forward on the success wall you've built. Success is not linear, and it's not validated by other people. Success is uniquely defined by you. Blessings, community. See you at the next one.